So yeah, I guess it's a good segue from the roundtable we just had. I will talk about connecting AI agents to Lisp environment, or connecting an AI agent to a Lisp environment. Start of the time, right? So you're going to show me some time. So I've coined the project Lisply MCP. So I think we know what MCP is roughly from the previous discussion, but I'll review. So MCP is meant to be a means for exposing any software tool, whether it be Excel spreadsheet, Microsoft Word, your file system, your development environment, to the AI agent. And Anthropic Company is the one who proposed this. It's an open standard, and their idea is that it works, anyone can implement them, anyone can use them. There are no licensing fees to use the protocol. And they made their cloud desktop, which is their flagship desktop agent for the Claude AI brain, which is in the cloud. But the cloud runs on your Claude runs on your desktop. And it has an MCP client built in, so it's a good one to use because you know it's pretty much going to work according, because they're the ones that made the protocol. And there's also a growing ecosystem of other MCP clients. There's one for Emacs. I'm not going to talk about that today, but you can make your Emacs into an MCP client to have it run Olama or something and then talk to tools and have your Emacs be the central hub of things. I haven't tried that yet. I've played with it a little bit. And then also a growing system of what's called the MCP clients, which is the servers. So the server is the thing that, for example, lets you access your file system. So, and what Lisply MCP is, and I'll talk about what Lisply means in a minute, but it's a middleware for accessing Lisp backends. So most of the complexity is in that middleware. And you'll see the Lisp backend is very simple. You can make your Lisp backend be compliant so that it can work with this middleware. And the Lisply protocol is a term that I've coined. So if you want your Lisp backend to speak the Lisply protocol so that it works with this Lisply MCP, you just it has to have an HTTP server in it. And you have to implement one endpoint. There's other ones you can optionally implement. But this one is required Lisp eval. So you have to implement an endpoint in your Lisp that can evaluate Lisp, which there's a built-in function to do that. It's called eval. So here's an architecture overview. I don't know how visible this is. But you have the user, which is a human, driving the thing. So this is you. Imagine yourself in that box. And you have your normal Emacs with Slime talking to the Lisp backend as usual. But then you also are using, let's say, Cloud Desktop to ask at a higher level it to write things and to test things. And then through this MCP wrapper, which is Lisply MCP, it's talking to the HTTP server inside your Lisply backend, which can be Common Lisp in this case that I'm going to show here. And then I have another endpoint, which is a generic HTTP endpoint, where it can test, because mainly what I do is writing web pages, writing endpoints in the Lisp. So then you can test those endpoints by giving the HTTP path. And this wrapper will also make those client calls. So then the LLM can see if it's well-formed HTML coming back and stuff. So here, this is the code in the back end. This is the Lisply back end. This is what you have to write in your Lisp, or you can use the one I've already written if you were using Allegro Serve. This uses Allegro Serve with the publish path. That's the syntax for publishing an endpoint with Allegro Serve. There's similar things for Hunch and Toot, Woo, and so on. 1 minute. So, but this is a reference implementation. The middleware will pull a Docker image. The default one is my one with Gendel, which is a common Lisp-based thing. So if you just take it out of the box, download it, and start running it, you'll get Gendel. You'll get a Gendel container. but you can specify which container as long as it's Lisply compliant. And you can also mount volumes so that your Lisp image has access to some part of your file system, so it can compile code. These are some install. You need Node and you need Docker. The middleware is a JavaScript program, sorry, but the middleware is JavaScript just because, reasons. And then you configure the AI, which is a configuration file that looks like this. So that's all you have to do. You give the path that points to the Lisply MCP wrapper, which is a JavaScript program, and we're running it through WSL and Node in this case. So those details, and then you can, with ---- mount, you mount whatever you want as a projects directory or whatever directory, and Lisp eval is the main. So it runs in HTTP mode by default. There's also a standard input-output mode, which allows the LLM to actually experience the debugger. I didn't show that in the diagram. For security purpose, you want to run your Lisp in a container and constrain the RAM and so on. So, any questions? Otherwise, I move on to the next one. And this is on GitHub, Gornskew, Lisply MCP.